syndicate, and by that I mean the public organizations, not some hidden crime and treason syndicate. The public organizations like AIPAC, the ADL, the Southern Poverty Law Institute. This is a crime and treason syndicate committing sedition and treason against this country. We need to start calling for the sheriffs to arrest them, not just wait for them to put our people in jail, like Jim or Congressman Hansen. So again, take that away from here. Start urging, like 300 sheriffs came out against, so they wouldn't let the federal government confiscate guns from their people. Start talking up the idea of the sheriffs before grand juries indicting the enemies that are in Goldman Sachs and the Fed and the ADL and the Southern Poverty Center. I want to say, because this issue is so sensitive, I'm going to say two things and get right into money. I got my start in the vote fraud fight because we saw the computers crash in 1979 and everybody switched places, okay? In 1985, thanks to the Spotlight, which is now the American Free Press, I hooked up with the Collier brothers, who wrote Vote Scam, The Stealing of America, and we're Chapter 12. Our Cincinnati team is Chapter 12, and Vote Scam, The Stealing of America, because I was this geeky conservative guy, Catholic school, almost afraid to talk to girls, and these guys were left-wing, loving the 60s, you know, the whole thing of the 60s, and they were liberal Jewish guys, the Colliers. And I worked with them without any friction, because we only worked on the vote fraud issue for 13 years until Ken passed away of cancer in 1993 and Jim Collier passed away in 1998. So I worked for 13 years. So like Traficant said, doesn't have a prejudiced bone in his body, and I don't think any of us do. But I worked with the Colliers for 13 years, and then there was one guy in the state of Ohio of Jewish descent that got on the ballot for president 2 times. One guy, since Ohio was started in 1803, one candidate of Jewish descent got on the ballot for president in Ohio twice. His name was Howard Phillips, and he was the founder of the Constitution Party, and he died on April 20th this year, God rest his soul. There was one guy in the history of Ohio that coordinated the 2 signature campaigns in Ohio that got Howard on the ballot, and that would be me, Jim Condit Jr. So when the Jewish crime and treason syndicate says that you're anti-Semitic, that means you're criticizing them and they're afraid of you, that you're going to be breaking their power in some way or another. I always say it this way, and then I'll get on to the money. I'm half Irish and 1/4 Italian. My Italian is Sicilian Italian. That's where the mafia came from. And of course, 98% of the Sicilian people were good people, but if the FBI was going to break the mafia in 1940s and 1950s, they had to go and look in the Sicilian Italian neighborhoods, because that's where the front people for the mafia were from. They couldn't look in the German and the Irish neighborhoods. They had to look in the Sicilian Italian neighborhoods. Now, if I said back then, if I was an adult back then and I said, "How dare you attack my Italian heritage by looking into the mafia in the Sicilian neighborhoods," I hope you would think one of 2 things. I hope you would think either 1, I'm deranged, or 2, I must be part of the mafia. So the same thing goes today. This small group that is of the Jewish people that constitutes the Jewish crime and treason syndicate in this country and the world, it's a small group. But to break it, we've got to arrest them. We can't arrest the Arabs and the Germans and all the people that have been demonized. We have to arrest who is actually running the crime syndicate. So anti-Semitism they use as a smear word, and really the proper response to being accused of anti-Semitism is to go, ha ha ha. I mean, the anti-Americanism, the anti-Christianism that crowd is doing is beyond belief. I would need 2 hours up here to even list the crimes that they're doing. Okay, now, last night I said to think about 2 things. What is money? And if they said, hey, you at Freedom Palooza, you people, we're going to send the Federal Reserve home and we're going to put you in charge, how would we run the money system? Now, the subject of money is a cue to put people to sleep. The only thing that keeps American interested about money is if you say, let's go buy a lottery ticket. The Powerball is $240 million. Now people are all, but money is a cue to put people to sleep. But I've tried to organize this so you can see that if we would issue money properly, then it would be a very exhilarating, exciting time for the future of mankind. The subject of money is not like a theoretical thing of 2 eggheads or 5 eggheads sitting in a college somewhere thinking, let's see what theories we can... Who controls the money of our world and our country can commit great crimes with it or do great good with it. For instance, the AMA, which stifles natural healing things. I'm not against emergency operations and pain pills, but they stifle and persecute people like Dr. Brzezinski in Texas, who has a cancer cure.
Can you move my recorder like more on the floor from me, bro?
They tried to kill, apparently, Suzanne
like
Summers,
over there
which is in
somewhere,
the first few pages of her book, Knockout.
Appreciate it, brother.
The AMA happened because the Rothschilds sent a guy named Morris Fishbein over here in 1903, and he worked with a lot of money to make the AMA the thing in America for medicine. So it takes money. GMO foods, Monsanto, these guys got so much money they bribed Congress to have no laws apply to them while they're messing with the food supply and probably making a lot of people sick. Owning the media. If I could press a button and do one thing, I would, what I would do is arrest ABC, the leaders at the controllers at ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox, and Hollywood, the 8 major studios in Hollywood, and put them on trial for treason and corrupting of minors and put honest Americans in charge of the media. Then we can straighten everything out within 6 months because we would be able to report on the crimes they're doing. So they bought our media with this money that the Fed has been issuing in the dark since 1913. The Federal Reserve Board does everything in secret. They've been issuing billions and trillions of dollars to take over our world, in my opinion. And that's why an audit of the Fed would never work, because they got 2 sets of books or 5 sets of books. Election fraud, like I talked about last night. Who do you think had the money to set up 4 mega-billion-dollar corporations and then buy Congress long ago and get the Democrat and Republican Party to tell every county to put in computer systems to count the votes in secret? So they not only have the media, if the media propaganda doesn't work, they pull in the election fraud, which I explained last night, that they count the votes on secret computers. No Americans are allowed to see ballots till 3 weeks after the election. Last time Congressman Jim Traficant ran as a former congressman, I think he told me he lost supposedly 60,000 to 20,000. Well, I'd like to see the real vote, the one that was not the computers, because I'm not convinced Congressman Traficant lost that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Let's see the ballots on election day. So, but who has the money to rig our entire election system over the last 40 years? Again, it's the international bankers and the Fed. So this is not a theory. They are using control of money to ruin our lives. They can hire the assassination squads, the frame-up squads, buy off the judges, the NSA. Who's building this 1 million square foot building in Utah, I think it is, that's going to house all the data that they're eavesdropping us on? The Patriot Act. You remember after 9/11, a 2,300-page bill, if I've got my numbers right, was handed to the Congress 2 days later. Now, if you've ever written anything, you can't write 20 pages or 50 pages of technical material in 2 days. So that bill was ready to go. That had been written by think tanks. They probably spent millions of dollars writing the Patriot Act, which should be called the Police State Act. So let's talk about money. What is money? Money, I am going to propose to you, is a ticket, and I'll give you sources to research further. Money is a ticket to buy goods and services. Okay? Think of it, we're at Kings Island, or we're at Disneyland, or Disney World, and we got a ticket so we can buy rides. Now, there's another thing. You have to have goods and services to buy, or in Disneyland, you got to have rides to go on, and you have to have a trusted source. Those are the 2 things that make money. If you have some homeless or a sleazy-looking guy with a homemade copier handing you copies of tickets on the side of the amusement park, nobody's going to accept them because they're going to think, well, these aren't any good. They're just zero. But if Disney World gives you the tickets, or Kings Island, then you say, oh, I can trust this. And you got a ticket that's worth something. You can go in and go on the ride. If the electricity goes out in the park that day and they can't do any rides, then the money again becomes worthless, because there's no rides to go on. So you got to have a trusted source, and you got to have something to buy. Now, what gives money its value? Is it gold? Is it silver? Now, silver and gold are valuable commodities. They've proven the test of time. Silver's used in industry, gold's used in industry. Gold, though, has also been, and silver have held their value when economies are crashed, either accidentally or if they're crashed on purpose. So gold and silver have their place. But do gold and silver, is that what really gives money its value? Except in very small part that they're a commodity. No, it is not gold and silver. What gives money its value is the food, the cars, the computers, the clothes, everything that we buy to live. That's what gives money its value. My friend Dean Malone, who we had a meeting 2 years ago with he and Jim Traficant and Pete Papa Hercules, who's here, and myself. And Dean says, if you think gold is so valuable, if you get stranded on a desert island, you can have all the gold. If we get stranded on a desert island, you can have all the gold and I'll take everything else. See, at that point, you know, I need the food, I need the plants, I need the animals, I need the water. It's all those things that give money its value. So, three things. Money has to come from a credible source, which today here is still the United States government. We have to have things that we can buy with it to live. Gold and silver are two products, but two very minimal products in the overall. And finally, as I said, we have to have products, and because that's what we live on. Okay, now, the best thing we can say, try to stay awake to this now because this is critical information and this must be understood by Americans in due time. The best we can say about our monetary system is that we're 100 years obsolete. Our money system, which has been in existence basically since 1696, with the, hello there, baby and mother. In 1696, the Rothschilds and the Bank of England started our money system. It's at least 100 years out of date. Why is it 100 years out of date? Because we have so many machines, so many computers, so much technology now that the money system is simply out of date. And what I'm going to talk to you now is about how we put it into date. We are living in the greatest age of plenty that there has ever been. There's more physical things now than there's ever been in history. I talked to a priest years ago, I don't know if he's still alive, he would counsel people, suicides, people with problems, marriage problems, depression. And somebody introduced him to me by phone, and he said, you know, modern man has traded in physical hardship for mental hardship. 100 years ago, 150, 200 years ago, we had to spend all day milking the cows and getting things to eat or just surviving, more or less. And now, we live in the physical age that mankind has dreamed of for thousands of years, but we will often have mental hardship to replace it. But we are living in an age of plenty. Now, when you have abuse of the money system, we see everything we have around us. The stores are full, but everybody's in anxiety because they're in debt. There's a book that I might for the recording. There's a book called "The Economic Elite versus the People of the United States of America" by David DeGraw. And David DeGraw listed here a few years ago how lopsided our system is. How 400 families, according to him, have as much wealth as 150 million Americans. So this is not theory again. We've got to fix it for our own sake. This statement I heard for years from a lot of different groups, and it was this, and see if you haven't heard this. If we print more money, it will have inflation, because more money will be chasing the same amount of goods. Have you heard that statement? If we print more money, we will have inflation, because we'll have more money chasing the same amount of goods. Now, there's something fundamentally wrong with that statement. And since we can't have a game show here, I'll tell you quickly what it is. Again, the statement is, if we keep printing money, we will have inflation because we'll have more money chasing the same amount of goods. The thing that's wrong with that song is, or that statement is, we don't have the same amount of goods. Goods are increasing all the time, and they could increase a lot more. We have tens of thousands of factories vacant. We have millions of people that were willing to work that can't find jobs. So, the thing that needs to be emphasized is we're not in a situation where goods are static. We got the machines, the computers, the technological age and the industrial age. So right now, what we have is, though, we have all these goods. The stores are full, the car lots are full, the computer stores are full. All the good stores are full, but there's not enough purchasing power in the American people's pocket. That's the problem. Now here's another principle that is essential to grasp. Besides the original ones, money is a ticket to buy goods. Gold and silver are only two of those goods, and really not that important in the overall, unless the economy crashes. Thirdly, that we got to have goods and services to buy, the clothes, the food. Now here's the third principle. The amount of money in circulation should about equal the goods and services that exist. So then this gets to the question, how would we, if they said, here, Jim, you in the audience here, we're going to put you in charge of the Fed here at Freedom Palooza. What would we do? We would hire the best economists and the best mathematicians who were honest, and we would have them estimate constantly how many goods and services we had available, how many near-term public works projects we needed, okay? And we would try to make the money about equal to the goods and services. You'd never have it perfect because somebody's eating a hamburger here and consuming food now, other people are making things, but you come as close as you can. And as long as you have the amount of money in circulation about equal to the goods and services, you will have, now we would have a good economy. Ron Paul was on CNN during the campaign, or right after in 2012, and he said, I'm amazed the Federal Reserve System has lasted this long. I don't know how it's lasted this long. I admire Congressman Ron Paul for a lot of things, but I can tell him why it's lasted. It's lasted because the Fed, the international Jewish bankers like Alan Greenspan and Paul Volcker, they understand what most of us don't understand. That as long as they equal money somewhat equal to the goods and services, that they can keep us from collapsing. And while they're skimming everything off the top that they can, we'll talk about that in a minute. We don't want anybody skimming off the top. So that's another important point. Austrian economics, and this is going to shock some people here. Austrian economics was sent to America by a Jewish guy, brought by a Jewish guy named Ludwig von Mises. He was sent here, by the Rothschilds through the Warburgs. That is on websites, and you need to look up the name of Coudenhove, C-O-U-D-E-N-H-O-V-E, and it isn't his whole name, but let me get it here. Coudenhove-Kalergi, K-A-L-E-R-G-I. I'm going to repeat that for the people that will want to look this up. Coudenhove, C-O-U-D-E-N-H-O-V-E Kalergi, K-A-L-E-R-G-Y. When you find the websites with his name on it, you'll find that he had money from the Warburgs to send von Mises over here. So I looked at Austrian economics, and I said, do they explain how much money should be in circulation? And I looked on the internet, and it was said in a number of Austrian economic sites, von Mises was always vague on how much money should be put in circulation. They don't really have a formula like I just gave on how much money should be in circulation. So that's a big problem. That's the important point, is how much money should be in circulation. I'll mention two videos for everybody if you want to watch them to get, because I'm going to be winding up here relatively quickly. I got a few more things to say. The Money Masters by Bill Still is on YouTube. It's 3.5 hours long. The Secret of Oz is about 90 minutes long by Bill Still. That's the real symbolism of the Wizard of Oz, which was the bankers against the farmers. And Dorothy's like all of us. The Scarecrow symbolizes something. I can't remember. The Tin Man might have been, but he tells all the symbology and what it meant. And those the two videos are excellent to understand the history of money. But there is a downfall, and I talked to Bill Still, and I'm a great admirer of his for these movies, but he at the end said that Milton Friedman told him the way to issue money into circulation is issue about 1 or 2% a year, okay? Well, I spoke with Bill Still at a 1996 thing in Kansas, and at the end of the thing, I got to talk to him a minute. Other people were gathered around, and I said how much I admired his Money Masters video, but I said, why, instead of doing 1 or 2% a year, why not do what the C.H. Douglas and the social credit people say, which is the system I've been describing? Why not issue it equal to the goods and services? And he looked at me a minute. I think it was a combination of who are you to be challenging Milton Friedman and thinking about it, and then someone else interrupted the conversation. But, you know, Milton Friedman was, again, another false secular saint. When the IRS was introduced to Congress when they wanted to take 0.5% out of our income tax for the war in 1941, which is the first time they ever took money out of anyone's wage earner's check, guess who they sent to Congress? It was Milton Friedman, false secular saint, and again, another player in the Jewish pantheon of trying to take control of the world. And he was big on promoting Austrian economics. The system I've been describing to you is a bad name for America. It's called social credit. And that had a different meaning 50 years ago. Social now evokes socialism, credit evokes debt. So we call it Douglas economics from the C.H. Douglas and originated at around 1917. He was in India for the British, controlling their money there, and he saw through what was the problem with the economy. And to head him off, the bankers sent somebody to Bretton Woods in 1945 whose name was John Maynard Keynes. You probably all have heard of him in high school. A lot of us were taught, well, Keynes just said that when you need money, just borrow it. And you'd think, well, that's crazy. Just borrow money when you don't have it? Well, instead of the government issuing the money at no interest, which the government could do as long as it's against goods and services, Keynes was just there for the bankers, saying, hey, keep borrowing from the bankers and go into debt to the bankers. So Keynes was just a fraud to try to head off C.H. Douglas's path. And the government now should always issue money at no interest. Right now, we got the crazy situation. We got the crazy situation where the Congress asks the Fed for money, the Fed prints it, and they start charging us interest. That's why the kids are told, you'll never get out of debt, you're in debt for the rest of your life. And it's a lie. All we got to do is fire or arrest the Fed and the people around that and start issuing money correctly. But that's what they have. The Congress got fooled in 1913, and for reasons selfish of their own, Congress issued money, asked the Fed issued it, and charged us interest. It didn't seem too bad in 1914, but now you can see what's happening, as the whole country being put into debt slavery. Let's see.
Jimmy, can you wrap it up?
Yeah, you told me to wrap it up in 4 minutes. Is that okay? Okay. All right, we're getting to the end here. I want to recommend 3 things that you can look for on the internet. I just scratched the surface here, but that's all we need to do tonight. One is called This Age of Plenty, which is on the internet for free by a fellow named Louis Even, EVN. One is called Social Credit in 10 Lessons. Don't get turned off by social credit. Think of it as the new economics in 10 lessons. It is not socialism. It is free enterprise on an even playing field. Today we have vulture capitalism. Pat Buchanan used the phrase vulture capitalism once in 1996, and he got jumped on immediately. Charles Krauthammer, the big Trotskyite communist Jewish guy on Fox who plays at being a conservative, jumped on him. But we have vulture capitalism today. What we need is free enterprise with an even playing field. And that's what this system that I'm describing to you would do. Let me make one last comment here. 2 last comments. Right now, money is being issued through banks. Banks loan to businesses. That's the only way, or loans to us through credit cards. That's the only way money comes into circulation. The way money should come into circulation is when we have more goods and services than we have money in circulation. Each year, a dividend should be issued to every human being in the United States, for instance.